Hello everyone, this is Kaylee from Birdy Adventures, and today I am doing my second Ramble in the Brambles video, which are videos basically where I just sit down and talk about stuff that I want to talk about. Like I say, I don't follow a script or anything like that, I just sit and I talk. This is my cat Titan who hopped up into my lap for a minute. Okay. But today's rambling video, I feel like talking about the story of Arkham Knight, and I am wearing my Arkham Knight Red Hood sweater for the occasion, I guess. So this isn't an analysis video or anything, and it's not about like the gameplay or the mechanics of Arkham Knight, which is I think almost 10 years old now. I think it came out in 2015, so yeah, I'm just gonna sit here and ramble about an almost 10-year-old video game and kind of my thoughts and feelings on its story. So I'll just preface by saying that I really like Arkham Knight. It's like, I love all the Arkham games. I do really like Arkham Knight, but I have issues with the story, and again, this is just about the story that is canon, I guess. I might mention the comics, particularly Arkham Knight Genesis, because I feel like there are things that could have been drawn on there that weren't, but I'll get into it. So yeah, so I'm gonna start with this is my understanding and kind of can't think of the word. This is my interpretation based upon the information that the game presents us with, as well as kind of my theories is not the right word, but thoughts, kind of looking into that information a little bit more, even if it's not necessarily information that's directly given. So for example, like Batman seeing the Joker throughout the game, I think there are like multiple theories on what that is, whether it's like Joker's blood or fear toxin or a mixture of both. So for example, my thought is that it's purely a hallucination based on fear toxin, because Bruce is infected with Joker's blood and his worst fear is turning into the Joker. So I think the way that that is manifesting through the fear toxin is Bruce hallucinating the Joker. The whole Joker's blood thing is kind of weird, because what was the point in taking the cure in Arkham City if you were then still infected with the Joker's blood? Like, I feel like that's one of like the game's plot holes, in the sense that it's never really addressed that he took the cure, so how is he infected with the Joker's blood? Because the way that the game presents it to us is that he is infected with the Joker's blood. Now, I think an interesting way of going about that maybe would have been that he isn't infected with the Joker's blood anymore, that the cure worked, but it's the fear toxin. He is afraid that because he was infected with the Joker's blood, that he is going to experience the same thing that other people are experiencing, that these other people are experiencing. But my main thing with Arkham Knight and the story of Arkham Knight is the handling of the Arkham Knight himself. So just to give a little bit of background information, Arkham Knight is actually how I became hyperfixated on the character of Jason Todd. And I do enjoy Jason's depiction in Arkham Knight because it's different from, like, obviously it takes its inspiration from Red Hood, but it does something different with it, in the sense that Jason never actually died, unlike other storylines. It's kind of similar to White Knight in the sense that Bruce believes that Jason is dead because of what the Joker told him, but Jason was never actually dead. That is kind of expanded on in Arkham Knight Genesis, but I don't think Arkham Knight Genesis was ever confirmed as canon, so I can't say for certain. But my issue with the handling of the Arkham Knight in Arkham Knight, and I'm sorry, I'm going to say that a lot, is that you want the character to be a mystery, but you don't do anything. The game doesn't do anything. The story of the game doesn't do anything for you to kind of figure out who the Arkham Knight is for yourself. There are those, and I'll get my big pet peeve out of the way. There are those hallucinations of Jason being tortured by the Joker. Now, I have a huge issue with those hallucinations because of how hallucinations work. So you can't hallucinate information you don't have. Now, all that the game tells us, all that the Arkham Knight game tells us is that Bruce Batman was sent a film, the film that we see from his perspective of Jason being shot. And that is the point. Like, Bruce does not know what Jason went through when the Joker tortured him. He doesn't know that. So how can he be hallucinating that information? Now again, you could give the answer that it's the Joker's blood. But at the same time, we aren't given the information that the blood gives. Why would just being infected with the Joker's blood give people the Joker's memories? It wouldn't. It isn't. We aren't given that. People are getting his personality traits, which you can attribute to blood, which you can like attribute to brain chemistry and stuff like that, but not his memories specifically. We don't see anybody else experiencing something like that. And if you wanted to give that as a reason, you should have some other character like experience something like that, or it should be mentioned somewhere. But Bruce does not have that information, so how is Bruce hallucinating those scenes? To set up that the Arkham Knight is Jason Todd, because we didn't do it in a better way, because we didn't actually want to make it a mystery. We wanted it to be a rug pull reveal, which you can't do 10 years after Under the Red Hood came out. You kind of can't, especially when you're setting up Arkham Knight in such a similar way to Under the Red Hood. The other thing is Scarecrow and Arkham Knight as villains, as antagonists, I think is the better word, in the story. I really think they should have been flipped around. So, especially because Arkham Knight is the titular character of the game, I really feel like he should have been the final boss, so to speak, instead of Scarecrow. Like, don't get me wrong, I really enjoy Scarecrow in Arkham Knight, and I think his plan is pretty cool, but I do think that their roles should have been flipped. I think Scarecrow should have been the primary focus at the beginning of the game, and the Arkham Knight should maybe have been introduced like a third of the way through the game. Okay, so again, I'm gonna go off on a tangent a little bit, and I'm gonna say this isn't me saying like I could fix the story of Arkham Knight. I enjoyed the story of Arkham Knight, but I have my problems with it, and these are kind of my weird solutions on how I think those problems could have been less problematic, if that makes sense. It feels, and it adds to like the Arkham Knight feeling shoehorned into a game that has his name. So I do believe that the intention the entire time was to have Jason Todd be the Arkham Knight, but for some reason we just, despite him being the titular character, we decided to really focus on Scarecrow instead, and he's just kind of there. And that kind of is an issue for me. Again, I'll come back to my original point. We don't know who the Arkham Knight is from the beginning, So it's clearly meant to be something that you were supposed to be able to figure out, and that the game never gives you any clues about. Like, we have this moment at the beginning of Ace Chemicals where Batman is talking to Oracle, and Oracle's like, the only thing we know about their commander is his name, the Arkham Knight. I feel like that should have come in later on in the game. I feel like the Arkham Knight should have been the final boss, should have been the final antagonist, and he should not have been mentioned until, you know, later on. But I also feel like you could have made his identity an actual mystery. So when you get to the reveal of who the Arkham Knight is, people either feel really accomplished because they figured it out from the clues that the game provided, or people on another playthrough look for the clues that were actually there as to who he is. I feel like Jason Todd as the Arkham Knight was a bit of wasted potential, considering all the build-up they put into it. I also feel like Arkham Knight is kind of disjointed from Arkham City to a certain extent. I don't think it's completely disjointed, but it feels like a little bit. So Arkham Asylum flows into Arkham City pretty nicely. There are like things that connect the two games, and I don't feel like the same amount of effort was put into connecting Arkham City and Arkham Knight, or even really Arkham Asylum and Arkham Knight. Like, yes, you have that end credit or that after credit scene of the Scarecrow, but that's not always Scarecrow. I don't think. I think it can be like Killer Croc or Bane. With the Titan formula. I don't think it's always Scarecrow, so that doesn't seem to me like a good, like a justifiable setup. Don't get me wrong, again, I really like Scarecrow and Arkham Knight, especially like John Noble's performance is great. But I feel like Scarecrow should have been the introductory antagonist moving in, and then have Arkham Knight introduced about a third of the way through the game, and have him just be in the back periphery for a while until kind of you get closer to the defeat of Scarecrow. And then when Scarecrow is defeated, Jason, like the Arkham Knight, comes out as the primary antagonist there. I'm not really sure like how I feel that would go, but it just, I think if they'd have been switched, the Arkham Knight wouldn't have felt like such a, like he wouldn't have felt so shoehorned in to a game that is about himself. Now, I've seen other videos on kind of the Arkham Knight being Damian, and I think Damian like, especially after Talia, I think Damian could have been a cool addition to Arkham Knight, but I won't speak too much to that because he's never been like an asset in the game or anything like that. So as I say, I do genuinely believe that Jason was always meant to be the Arkham Knight. Okay, so what are some other rants? What are some other things? My main one really is that Joker scene, is the Joker torture scenes, because it's just, how does Bruce have, and especially it especially bothers me because that's the hinge point of Jason being the Arkham Knight, is, you know, that's the point where you're like, okay, yeah, no, you're just spelling out for everyone who the Arkham Knight is, instead of it being like a decent, satisfying mystery. You could have done a really decent mystery out of it by giving like clues that slowly hone in on who he is. And of course, you know, Bruce would obviously have the disbelief angle of thinking that Jason is dead, but there's also kind of the whole thing of like, it just, I think for me, it's you're not making good use of Batman Batman being the world's greatest detective in that instance, because it's kind of like, if I'm playing the man who's supposed to be the world's greatest detective, I want to detect who the Arkham Knight is. I want to put together for myself who the Arkham Knight is. And I think, I don't know, I think that was cheapened to be like a rug pull moment of, oh, you're never going to put it together. Well, you spelled it out for us, so I don't know how you thought that was going to be the moment, because we already figured it out. You put big red flags pointing to it when you made Bruce watch 3 separate scenes that don't make sense for reasons I've already explained. That's just telling everyone, that's just broadcasting it. Now, I don't remember the trailers for Arkham Knight, so I believe people figured out really quickly that the Arkham Knight was Jason Todd, so you did a really bad job with that. But to be fair, also, Jason Todd's a pretty popular character. He's been a pretty popular character since Under the Red Hood. So and people are gonna see the similarities with Under the Red Hood. I just feel like the mystery aspect of his character was misused. And I think that's probably the best way I can describe it. And my biggest problem, and I don't necessarily have a problem with it because it's Jason Todd. I'd have a problem with it anywhere else. He just, I don't know. The other issue that I have is I would have liked more interaction between him and other members of the Bat family, especially Tim, I guess, because obviously Tim being his replacement, and a big aspect of Jason's hatred towards Bruce is being replaced. But I think, so something I really like about the audio logs from the Arkham Knight where Barbara is being interrogated by Scarecrow, like, yes, Jason is the reason why she is in that position, because he told Scarecrow about Oracle. So, and I believe that the reason, and again, this is just my own theory because it's never specified in the game, the story never tells us specifically, so this is just my theory, but I believe that the reason why Jason told Scarecrow about Barbara was to gain his trust. He needed, because obviously the Scarecrow isn't just going to believe some random guy who has modeled himself to look like Batman is on the up and up, I guess. So I do believe that he told Scarecrow about Barbara to get Scarecrow's trust, because that's okay, yeah, you know stuff that other people don't know, without like straight up telling Scarecrow that Batman is Bruce Wayne. I definitely think that's a part of it. But so those audio files show that Jason's not angry at Barbara. And he asks how Alfred's doing, so he's not mad at Alfred. Now, we have no concept as to Jason's relationship with Dick Grayson in the Arkhamverse. We don't know. Or at least as far as I'm aware, we don't know. It's not mentioned in the game. I don't think it's mentioned in the comics. And it's not mentioned in the novelization of the game either. So we don't know with Dick. But he doesn't, when Dick is in Gotham, he doesn't seem to target Dick. He doesn't go after Lucius Fox, even though he knows about Lucius Fox. So it's very clear that all of his hatred is focused on Batman. And I believe that part of that is because he can no longer, he can't get revenge on the Joker anymore, because obviously the Joker is dead. So I feel like all of that has kind of pinpointed this hatred onto Jason. And again, this is one of my issues, is that his characterization is very poor in the story of Arkham Knight, which is sad because the voice acting performance is superb, is amazing, especially in his reveal scene. Like, Troy Baker does a really good job, like, really portraying that, the hurt, I guess. The hurt's probably the best word I can use, because it's not just anger. I think it goes beyond anger. But we get that, yes, he wants to kill Bruce, and as he's held back from killing Bruce, he gets angrier and angrier. And I don't believe the anger is just at Bruce. He gets angry at Scarecrow too, which I believe is what leads to the whole cloudburst thing, in the sense that Jason just disregards the cloudburst and keeping the cloudburst active in exchange for going for Bruce, because it just he just becomes angrier and angrier, and his anger blinds him. And it's just, and again, this is where it would have been really nice if Arkham Knight Genesis was canon, because Arkham Knight Genesis does actually do a much better job of giving Jason a character, giving the Arkham Knight, like, seeing how his motivation works. All we really get from the game is, I'm gonna kill Batman, and I've teamed up with Scarecrow to do it, you know. Which I also wish we got more on that we got more on how Arkham Knight and Scarecrow came together to work together. Like, because it's specified that Arkham Knight and Scarecrow approach the rest of the rogues to obviously help fund the army, to fund the militia. But it's not, I don't believe it's ever revealed how Scarecrow and the Arkham Knight meet. Like, why does Jason specifically choose to work with Scarecrow specifically? You know, why not the Riddler or Two-Face, or, you know, or a Cobblepot even? Now, I do believe, part of me, again, my theory is that because Scarecrow is one of the smarter villains, whereas kind of the others are more, so I think that he is, like, Scarecrow is more interested in in punishing Batman, in helping to, because obviously he knows from the dialogue in the game that the Arkham Knight wants revenge on Batman. Like, from the first time we see the Arkham Knight in person, you know, he talks about his revenge, so he obviously knows that he wants revenge on Batman, but he doesn't know much. He obviously doesn't know he's Jason Todd, doesn't know he's the second Robin, doesn't know that, you know, obviously that he knows who Batman is. Because I think that's the thing, is Jason has to play the game in the sense of he can't give away too much, because then he gives away who he is. And he's just very poorly. Hang on a second, my camera's about to stop recording. Okay, there we go. He's just, so much is put into characterizing the Scarecrow and kind of showing that Scarecrow is prepared for Batman in a way that Batman maybe isn't completely expecting, that it's just, I don't know. I think what kind of adds to my frustration with Arkham Knight is, again, he's the titular character, but he's so poorly characterized. He's just not given a good characterization at all. We don't, like, okay, I think there's almost a dependency on you knowing who Jason Todd is coming into the game, which for a part of me can understand, but part of me is like, well, if you're trying to appeal to a wide audience, or people who maybe play video games but don't read comics, I think you kind of need to give more there than just let's watch these torture scenes with the Joker to point out who this character is, and you don't really get anything more than that. We don't get anything more. So the other thing that's in Arkham Knight Genesis in the comic that I think would have been really good in the game is the Arkham Knight's relationship with Deathstroke. So in the comic, Deathstroke, basically Jason pays Slade to get him away from Arkham, Asylum when the asylum falls. So in Arkham Genesis, it is specified that, and again, this is non-canon. If I mention Arkham Knight Genesis, it's not canon. But I get frustrated when the comic stuff would add so much context and stuff to the game, but they won't call it canon. So, because obviously Deathstroke is in Arkham Knight. He's in I think he's one of the Seasons of Infamy bosses. He's in the big tank. Like he's kind of, no, he's not. I think he's the end of Campaign for Disarmament. I don't remember. But he's in the game. He's a boss in the game. And he has a really interesting relationship with Jason, with Arkham Knight in Arkham Knight, that's kind of expanded on in Arkham Knight Genesis. And I thought that would have been a really cool detail to add into the game. You know, have just hints of their relationship. Because here's the thing, again, world's greatest detective, have Batman, you know, have Oracle find something that connects the militia to Deathstroke, and then have just some random thing that mentions something about the Arkham Knight. I just feel like Arkham Knight, as the titular character of the game, needed more build-up in the game. And, like, yes, you have the militia coming in when Bruce saves Poison Ivy at the beginning, but that doesn't feel like, I don't know, it feels wasted. It felt like a wasted thing. Have the militia, like, I'm not saying that, like, the Arkham Knight and the militia have to be tied intrinsically, because you could still have the storyline of Scarecrow coming to, you know, Scarecrow coming to the villains. Have Deathstroke with Scarecrow to add credibility to, you know, have it seem as though the militia work with Deathstroke, and just have slowly hinting in to this other person who's working with Deathstroke from the shadows. Especially because they did such a good job with Deathstroke in Arkham Knight Origins, and I realized Rocksteady didn't make Origins, but still. Like, have Deathstroke be there with Scarecrow at the beginning, and then have Arkham Knight as this, you know, silent partner. Because have Deathstroke and Scarecrow having information that Bruce knows they shouldn't have, that Batman knows they shouldn't have. So, of course, then Batman is like, well, why? Where are they getting this information? Where is this coming from? You know, has somebody betrayed me? Did something has somebody, like, hacked Oracle? Like, that just to me would have been a better mystery of, okay, this is information that these characters should not have, and then have it growing and growing and growing and growing until you hit a point where you have this reveal of the Arkham Knight, and then have it build up, continue building that up, and then the release be when it's revealed to be Jason Todd, probably after the boss fight. Have Bruce beat the ever-loving daylights out of the Arkham Knight, or something along those lines, only to realize that it is his incredibly traumatized, you know, former Robin, who he thought was, because you can use Bruce believing that Jason is dead as Bruce just not considering it, because Bruce is a very logical person. Like, Batman is a very logical man, so it would be easy for him to discount, oh, this can't be, Jason would never be a thought as to who it could be, because he believes that Jason is dead. That is a completely reasonable explanation for why the thought would have never occurred to Batman that it could be Jason. My other really big problem with Arkham Knight is, as much as I love Mark Hamill as the Joker, Arkham Knight really didn't need the Joker. I'm like, I understand in the thing of the story why he's there. I don't think he needed to be there. I don't think his presence really adds anything. I think there are some cool moments, like there are some cool like dialogue pieces, but so the other thing is like so he's a hallucination. That's the theory. That's the perception that I am going off of based upon the information that the game gives us, is that because he's not there, you don't see him until Bruce gets dosed with fear toxin. So he's a hallucination produced by fear toxin. And it's the whole like Joker blood thing doesn't really need to be there either. Like it just felt like it didn't go anywhere. It just felt like it didn't go anywhere. Like, yes, you get this cool, this cool mental thing, and you get to, play as the Joker for a little bit and see a Jokerized Batmobile. But it just, I don't know, it felt like all of that should have been attention that was given to the Arkham Knight. Because like Scarecrow is great, but the thing is, you could take Arkham Knight out of that and still have it go in a very similar way, again, or you could replace Arkham Knight with Deathstroke and it still go the same way. I think that's my frustration with the use of Arkham Knight as a character, is he doesn't do anything. He does stuff, but it's stuff that other characters could reasonably do. Cough cough, Deathstroke. I'm gonna be stuck on that now because it's just come to me that you could have just had Deathstroke there instead of Arkham Knight and it still would have been the same thing. But yeah, I don't care for the whole Joker blood thing. I don't think it needed to be in there. I agree with the people who kind of say that it's filler, and that they really didn't think they could pull off a game without the Joker in it, which I mean, to be fair, on another little tangent, Batman movies are kind of the same way. I really, like, Batman has such a cool rogues gallery, and it would be nice to see others get their chance, to be featured. I think that's probably why I love the Joel Schumacher movies so much, is because they use characters that you don't really ever get to see. Joel Schumacher also did my favorite depiction of Two-Face. I don't really like the depiction of Two-Face that's in the Nolan trilogy. I appreciate that it's supposed to be like a more grounded version, but I like the whole DID split personality aspect for Two-Face. I think that's a better characterization for him. It makes him more interesting. So, but there's my little tangent on that. I also just really like the makeup for Batman Forever for Two-Face. But yeah, so that's that little tangent over. But yeah, it felt as though, oh, we can't do this without the Joker. So now we have 4 Batman games, all of which have the Joker as an antagonist in some way, shape, or form. And it just, okay, let's put him away now. Let's focus on some, especially, again, this is another thing. This actually has nothing to do with the Arkham Knight himself, but Hush. So Hush was such a great thing in Arkham City, like the build up to the reveal of Hush and like Tommy Elliott and him stealing Bruce Wayne's face and all of that cool stuff, only for it to fizzle out in Arkham Knight. Like, yes, we're happy that it had a resolution, but it just didn't feel like a good resolution. It felt like, oh yeah, no, we need to tie that up, don't we? Because there are some really cool villains in Arkham Knight. Like some of the like side villains. We're not going to talk about Eddie. We're not going to talk about the Riddler because that whole thing is ridiculous. Like it matches the Riddler because it's so ridiculous. But like there are some, like, I like the use of Azrael and how he kind of, you know, how he seems to like, to genuinely care about Gotham, and then it's like, oh, yeah, you gotta kill Batman. Like, I like Professor Pig. I think the Professor Pig side missions actually are some of my favorites in Arkham Knight. So, just even from a story thing of just finding the, like, like we're dealing with all this other stuff, and there's also this weird serial killer who's like leaving bodies crucified in various places. Like, just, it's a great introduction to Professor Pig. Who else? Like, I like Penguin, because I like the way it shows the dynamic between Batman and Nightwing, or between Bruce and Dick. I like that aspect of it. Like, a lot of the villains, like the other villains, got really, really good. I think Deathstroke suffered a lot, so it's just, for again, it feels like Joker feels shoehorned in there, but not it feels like Joker was more of a focus than, again, the titular character of the Arkham Knight. Almost swore there. Yeah, so that's kind of frustrating. Like, when I think about the story as a whole and I kind of start getting frustrated with it, it just, like, we could have taken the Joker out entirely and had, because you can still have that moment of, oh, the joke, like Bruce being like, well, why didn't I think about the fact that the Joker might have lied, or even like tying it to Arkham City, have the Joker say something that in hindsight from Arkham City would have pointed to the fact that Jason is alive. But we can't do that. We have to have this forced kind of exposition stuff, and it's just, so the only hallucination where it's kind of like, okay, you know, really Bruce wouldn't have known that, but he could have, obviously, is the I told you one teeny tiny little lie, but come on, look at the boy, is because obviously at that point Bruce knows that the Joker lied, so his brain can give the hallucination that dialogue, because a lot of the dialogue from the Joker makes sense as a hallucination. And again, hallucinations only know what you know. They can only pull the information that you've got in your brain, because where else would a hallucination, a product of your mind, get that information from? So that's just frustrates me so much. Like, that's my big, huge deal, is that one, we didn't treat a mystery character as a mystery that you could figure out for yourself, and two, the way that the mystery was ruined was through a set of scenes that are not possible given the information that the game provides us. It is literally, it's not a Deus Ex Machina, but it doesn't make sense in the logic that the game has provided. Bruce does not have that information, therefore he would not be able to hallucinate it. Now, the thing is, now again, you could use the argument that Bruce knows that Jason was tortured from the scene. This is going to be the last thing I talk about, and then I'm going to stop, because otherwise I could go on for hours. But you could say that Bruce has inferred from that tape that Jason was tortured, at which point, why would the hallucination, why would he hallucinate it, but he still wouldn't hallucinate information that turned out to be true? I think it would have made more sense if you just, those hallucination scenes shouldn't have been there. You could have had things hinting at, like, the film that Joker sent to Bruce. You could have had stuff like that. Hell, there were opportunities for organic discussion with Tim that could have mentioned Jason. There are so many ways in which, like, even like conversations between Bruce and Alfred, Bruce and Barbara, like, there are so many organic ways that Jason could have been brought up, and instead we just had that. And it's annoying, because it just cheapens the reveal of who he is, and it makes it feel like it wasn't like he wasn't a real consideration in the story. It just, I don't know, it kind of, for me, it just kind of ruins the whole thing when I think about it for too long. And again, as I'm gonna finish off with this. Again, this is not about the gameplay, it's not about the mechanics, this isn't an analysis video. This is literally just me ranting for about 40 minutes about my problems with the story of Arkham Knight and how I think that the Arkham Knight story could have been so much cooler with the Arkham Knight still being Jason Todd. I do not think that like Jason Todd was the shoehorned in aspect. I just feel like they wanted to use him for this purpose and then didn't know how to use him. And that's my bird telling me to shut up. So, okay. I'm gonna get off my soapbox now. I think I've said everything that I wanted to say. I really enjoyed making this video, even if it is just me ranting for a while. We'll see how long this ends up being. If you'd like to discuss the things I've talked about, please let me know in the comments, like your thoughts and stuff. Again, this is me just ranting out of nowhere. I don't have a script or notes or anything like that. This is just me going off the top of my head. But yeah. If you like this video, like it. If you didn't like it, dislike it. If you haven't already, subscribe to the channel. And until next time, stay nerdy, my friends. Bye.